for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We have some new content in this kickoff, so if you've been to it before, I hope that you still get something out of it today. And I'm going to come back and do the bulk of the presentation, but I want to start just obviously by welcoming everyone and then pass it over to Becky to do the first few slides, but then you'll hear from me again. Okay, I'm going to jump forward. Becky, do you want to start?
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, are you passing it to me now?
I'm passing it to you now.
We wanted to seem very authentic, so we didn't practice in advance for this. That's our excuse, and we're sticking to it. Yeah, welcome everybody. We're really excited to get into everything. But before we do, we wanted to say hello to some of you who are maybe a bit newer to Engineers of Tomorrow in the Engineer in Residence program. So this is our amazing team. So today we have on the live call myself, Rebecca White, or you might hear some people call me Becky. I'm okay with either. We have our amazing operations manager, Sarah Rishu. So you're going to be hearing lots from Sarah today, and I'm sure you've been getting lots of emails from Sarah as well. And we wanted to give a shout out to our two awesome summer interns. They have both now gone back to school. Lael is actually doing an international program. I think she's in Germany, right, Sarah, or somewhere like that. But they did so much hard work over the summer to get everything set up for this year's Engineer in Residence program. So shout out to Adam and Lael. Next slide, please, Sarah. Okay, so for our agenda today, we have lots that we want to go over. Like Sarah said, hopefully there's some new stuff in here for those of you veterans returning EIRs. We really want everyone to get something out of it. Teachers that might be here, brand new EIRs to our community. So we're going to talk about goals and expectations. I'm going to do a little kind of context setting and welcome everybody. And then we'll go over our goals and expectations. And then we do want to spend some time today talking a bit more than we maybe have in the past about the value of building a really solid teacher-engineer relationship. So we're going to just go into that in a bit more detail and why that's so valuable and important. And then, of course, everybody's favorite thing to talk about is like, what do we do in the classroom and how do we engineer this experience in the classroom? So we'll go into that. And then we have some, of course, recommended resources and all the things that you need to know to be an EIR or to have an EIR in your class this year. Next slide, please, Sarah.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to start again by saying it's really my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the kickoff for the 24-25 Engineer in Residence program. Again, whether you're joining us as a volunteer or a teacher that's eager to bring this experience into the classroom, we're very grateful for your commitment and your presence. And sorry, guys, one second. There's a bunch more people that just got in the waiting room. Oh, knitting everyone.
Thanks,
okay. And I really wanted to just express my gratitude to the engineers who are really generously volunteering their time. Thank you. Thank you. Like, by stepping into this role of a mentor and a guide, you're really providing these students the opportunity to meet real life engineers and explore what a future in a STEM can look like. And that's just so powerful. For many of those students, you're probably the first engineer they will meet. And that little encounter, and I'll put it in quotes, little, because it's not little, it really could be the spark that sets them onto their path to success. And to all of our teachers, thank you for opening up your classrooms and for your passion in making STEM education accessible and inspiring. We really just love partnering with you to show students that engineering isn't just about building bridges or solving equations. It's about solving real world problems. It's about impacting communities. It's about us as humans wanting to help people. So you'll hear more about this today, but the program is more about just these visits and activities, of course. It's about building these strong partnerships between, oh, sorry, one sec. Somebody else is trying to get in and I almost accidentally kicked them out. So it's about building these strong relationships. And it's something that makes this learning experience really exciting for all of you, as well as, of course, then for the students. And you're not just, shaping, as engineers, you're not just shaping like the future, but you're empowering all these kind of young minds to really think about their own potential, and you really are creating change. And then I wanted to add here, like at Engineers of Tomorrow, so we're here talking to you about the Engineering Residence Program, but us as an organization, our vision, our kind of big picture thinking is that we have an engineering profession that's as diverse as the challenges that we have to address. And so through your support, we can keep working towards this vision and making it a reality. So I want to just thank you all again for being part of this incredible mission. So let's dive a little bit more into what this year holds for us and how we can work together to make it the best one yet. But before we do that, I want to give you a bit more context. So as some of you may be aware, we do have a persistent lack of diversity within engineering. I'll let you kind of absorb that data that you're seeing up on the screen there, but in particular, we have a lot of data around the number of women that are represented in the engineering profession, as well as underrepresented groups. So what does that mean? Well, through the Engineer in Residence program, we know that there are certain barriers that we have to break down. And through the Engineer in Residence program, we have that opportunity to really address some of those barriers. And by mentoring students and sharing your experiences, you are helping to make engineering more inclusive by helping all students, regardless of their identity, see the potential for engineering to drive positive change. And notice I'm not saying, turn them all into engineers. That is absolutely not what we're trying to do. We're really just trying to open everyone's eyes to what engineering is and how it really is about making these positive societal changes. Next slide, please, Sarah. So I will just wrap up my section here and just let you know, our goal is to empower you, to support you, to create these meaningful, hands-on engineering experiences for students across Canada. EIR really is more than just a mentorship opportunity. It's a way to inspire those students who have not considered an engineering path to possibly see themselves as future engineers. And let's be honest, most kids, as I said, they've never met an engineer before. It's a really stealth profession. But by working together, teachers and engineers, you can help really bring the STEM curriculum to life and shape the future of engineering. And really, I think it's about the sustainability of the profession too. All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for giving me some time to share that with this group. I'm
Thank you
excited
so
to
much.
hear what everybody thinks.
We love hearing from you. Thank you so much. I think that's really important. I love the last message that you said, especially when I think about what an engineer is. Like, we're so much more than just, folks that are into math and science. We have so many other characteristics. And I personally think a lot about our role as EOT in the classroom as being so much more than just telling people about their potential in engineering, but also raising awareness of what engineering is in general. And so obviously, we don't want to make every kid want to go into engineering, but we want everyone to know about what engineers are and what we do and the impact that we have in the world. I think that's a huge, tremendous impact that all our volunteers have in the classroom. And so I'm really proud of the work that we do there in impacting every student. So like Becky said, we didn't over prepare because we want this to be really authentic. I want you to feel like it's interactive too. So please raise your hand or jump in if there's something that you want to say as we go along. My goal is to make you feel really comfortable with your role this year in EIR. And because we have so many great veterans here as well as new people, I hope that you're all willing to kind of share your experience and share the questions that you have going into this year. So just skipping forward. Now I'm going to get into some of the specifics for the goals and expectations. And again, we want you to feel connected. We want you to know where to get resources. We want you to know how to connect with other people doing this type of work. And we want you to, again, just ask questions and learn as you go along here. And please, afterwards, if you have any other questions or there's still something that you need from us, please reach out anytime. Okay, so I want to do a quick temperature check on how everyone is feeling now. This is new to me. We're using Slido. So if you look in the chat for the meeting, you'll see an actual link to this, or you can use your phone to go to this QR code on the screen now. And when you go to do it, you should see on your screen how people are responding. Please go ahead into that Slido and let us know how you're feeling going into today's meeting. With the very bottom one, that sad face is I have a lot of questions, and the happy face with the hearts is I feel great. I can see that we have people saying that they're feeling great. That's amazing. Oh, a couple people a little lower on the scale. That's good. We're going to try to answer all your questions, and I hope that by the end of the meeting, we have everybody all the way over there on the right. Thank you for going in there and engaging. That's awesome. Oh, we're all kind of at the high end. Maybe a couple people down
I
there with
just wanted to add something here too, Sarah. If you're feeling on the lower end, can I just say that's totally normal? Like,
totally
don't be afraid to say that you're on that end. Like, if you haven't been in the classroom before, it can be very or seem very intimidating. So, totally normal. Don't worry about it.
So again, like I really hope that through this session today, you gain a lot of confidence and comfort in the work that you're doing. This isn't meant to be a training session. I want to have a lot of dialogue. We are going to do some breakout rooms. And so I hope that those folks that are a bit lower down on the scale there get something out of today and feel a bit better as we progress through. But yeah, please feel free to jump in if you have questions. Okay, so what is an EIR? Now we're going to get into the really nitty gritty goals and expectations. So I always tell people our goal, first and foremost at Engineers of Tomorrow, is to introduce children to real life engineers so that they can see potential for themselves in the profession. So an EIR is a role model. They're an ambassador for engineering. They're a stereotype breaker. Gosh, personally, I love going in the classroom and saying, hey, like I live in this really small town where you think there might not even be engineering jobs, but I'm an engineer. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. You know, I have a family. I have a home that I take care of, and I can also be an engineer. And so I think that really breaks down a lot of stereotypes where I live. We're an ally for teachers, as most of us know, teachers across Canada are being asked to teach engineering concepts now. And gosh, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be a teacher who's been in the field for a while, who maybe never really thought about it before. And now you're all of a sudden teaching engineering concepts. And so we can go in there and help them with that. An engineer who cares. It's nice for students to meet engineers who actually care about them on a human level, who they can relate to. And they're an example of what is possible. So in really practical terms, your EIR, you're going to go in the classroom about once a month. If you're a teacher, you can expect your engineer to be ready to come in whenever you like, about once a month through the year, to do STEM activities that are totally flexible and customizable. And you'll learn through this session today that that can take many different forms. Definitely at the beginning, we hope that the engineers will go in and just be themselves and just talk about themselves. And like Becky was saying, a lot of kids have never met an engineer before. So it's a great chance for kids to just, put a face to the profession. And also learn about some of the cool jobs that engineers have that they may not have ever thought about themselves, and really start to see the potential for themselves in the profession. We've been talking just in the last year or so about Engineers of Tomorrow's core values. This is a new thing for us. Really trying to put that human focused approach into all of the work that we do. And just while we're on this slide, I want to share a couple of little tiny stories that I've heard from engineers over the last little while about how they bring that human focused approach into their work. I talked to an engineer in London, Ontario, who works on construction projects, like as a civil engineer working with the city. And he said to me, hey, I'm the one that causes all the bad traffic in London, Ontario. And I want to go into the school and tell the kids that's me. And I want to go on a field trip with them and show them. And I think what a cool opportunity to show kids that, hey, engineers impact your own community. I talked to another engineer on the East Coast who does transportation work with the bus system. And I know it's a similar story, similar type of engineering. But I loved her story. She talked about how they always want to make their bus system bigger geographically. And they kind of stopped and said, how do we instead make it better for the community and not just bigger? And they thought about people who, like people who are underemployed and are looking for ways to get to the downtown core to get to new jobs or to job interviews, or to people who are disabled who need that extra bit of support right in the downtown core. And so they, instead of focusing on getting bigger, they focused on having more diversity in their offerings. And I think all of those kind of human focused stories are what really impact kids and make them see, like, hey, I always thought engineers just, sat in front of a computer, but they actually affect the community that I live in. And I think that's pretty cool. So I wanted to share a couple little stories there. Moving forward. So really specifically, what do EIRs do with a class? This is the question that everybody asks me when I meet new engineers. I really want to be crystal clear about this. There are really three things that we want you to do in the classroom. Number one, give the kids a chance to meet you. Go in, be yourself, and share your engineering story. So in this presentation, you'll see we're going to talk a little bit more about sharing your engineering story. Tell them about why you chose it, why you're excited about it, and really help them to see that engineers are way more than just math and science superstars. We're good at building teams, planning projects, bringing people together, talking about things, and thinking through the impact of the work that we do every day. And I think kids can start to see that, hey, that actually kind of looks and sounds like me. I also want to call out that Rebecca showed earlier those numbers around girls going into engineering, for our women EIRs, especially, to go in and show the young women, young girls, that it's an opportunity for them is really major for them. And then I don't want to minimize the impact of diversity in culture and in background as well. We have a lot of new immigrants to Canada, both from an engineering standpoint and from a student in the classroom standpoint. And how cool is it that the kids get to see someone who, looks or sounds like them in the classroom doing this really cool job that they maybe never thought was an opportunity for them. So that's the main thing. And in terms of the specifics around that, think about your first visit and how you might put together a little bit of a talk or a presentation on who you are and what is your story. And don't underestimate the power of just having an open dialogue and a Q&A. You could go in the classroom and just say, what are your questions? And talk to the kids about whatever it is that they're curious about. The second thing is, I've already mentioned that teachers across Canada are now including engineering concepts in their regular curriculum. So you could go into the classroom when they're doing a regular unit, a regular science class, and think about how you can layer in rich engineering thought into what they're doing in their regular curriculum. So think about ways you can introduce concepts like the engineering design process that really can fit into any of the work that the kids are doing in their curriculum. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can find out what that curriculum is and how to talk to the teacher about that. And then the last thing is just really fun and engaging activities. So think about what your strengths and interests are and bring an activity to the classroom that really just ties in with what the kids are curious about and what you think that they'll enjoy learning, and just have fun with it. And I always say to people with that one, we're not prescriptive about what activity it is, but we are supportive. So I'm going to show you some resources to get ideas on that. Go
Sarah,
right
I
ahead.
put up my hand. I have a story about that. I don't think he's with us today, but one of our veteran EIRs. Oh, he is. Don Himboldt is here. I always remember this story you told, Don, about the lesson you did on, I think it was bridges. They were building the beams out of like rolling up the newspapers and making them into like beams. And the kids were more interested in trying to understand the strength of their beams, and like you created some contraption for them to be able to test the beams. So they kind of weren't interested in the actual building of the structure. They were more having more fun exploring, understanding the material and the strengths and the properties around it. And I love how you you just went with that. You're like, this is what they wanted to do, so let's go in that direction.
So fun. I love it. I also always think about Don Ball's story about going in, and I think you were doing something like Tinkercad or Minecraft or something, and the kids were trying to figure out how to make it work on the Chromebooks in the classroom, and you kind of had to stop and say, okay, let's all figure this out together. Let's scratch our heads and get it working for the whole class. And I absolutely love stories like that, where you humble yourself as the engineer and just say, like, we just got to figure this out, and hey, that is engineering. And so love both of those examples. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Becky. Okay, so talking about your engineering story part of things, that first one. So if you came to our summer training sessions, you might recognize this slide. This was Adam's engineering story. And you can see on here, nothing about this looks and feels like sitting in front of a computer and doing math. And so I just kind of love this depiction of it. And if you want to know more about Adam's story and about how to create these types of presentations, I do encourage you to go back to the video of that training session from the summer. If you don't have access to it or you're not finding it, just let me know and I can send it along to you. It's on our YouTube channel. And this really leads me into an actual engineering story from someone who we have on the line today. We have Chris Davidson here with us, and I'm going to play a video that he shared on YouTube and LinkedIn. I don't think it'll start right away. Maybe it will. And Chris, we would love for you to give us some context afterwards, but I'm going to jump right in and play this video. And I want you all to think about how Chris formed this together and how he put together this story and how this conveys his engineering story, even though it's not like one of those typical presentations you'd expect where someone stands in front of a group and says, hi, I'm Sarah and I'm an engineer, blah, blah, blah. This is really way more engaging and it includes lots of cool elements. So without further ado, I'm going to play it and then we can talk a little bit about it.
I said in the last video I didn't want to talk about the history of the Rideau Canal, but I do want to spend a moment on my story. I grew up in Ottawa, skating on the canal at Dow's Lake in winter and canoeing the lower Rideau Lakes in summer. As an adult, I realized how unique and defining those experiences were, but as an engineer, I also know how we risk losing them. Take winter skating. Back when I first put on skates, we could rely on winter in Ottawa to be frigid. As a kid, I was pretty sure you couldn't survive the 8-kilometer skateway without 3 hot chocolates and a beaver tail. Fast forward 30 years, and while winter is still cold, on average it's a few degrees warmer. To open the skateway, we need 2 weeks of minus 10 degrees Celsius weather to freeze enough ice. The higher the average goes, the less likely we are to get that continuous cold. That's what happened in 2024 when the canal was only open for 10 days, or 2023 when it didn't open at all. Summer on the Rideau also inspired my career in water. Like any canal, the water did the work, carrying us from the peace above Westport to the bustle of Parliament Hill. But since then, that same increase in temperature means spring melt has started a little earlier each year, and summer has lasted a little bit longer. As a result, the water stored in the upper Rideau Lakes is being stretched thinner and thinner, and we've started to see the low flow each year decrease. And while it's not a showstopper like not being able to open the skateway in winter, it is something we have to watch for now. These problems, the warming in winter and the low flow in summer, they're what we're seeing now, based on measurements now. And 20 years experience in water engineering tells me climate change isn't going to make them any better. In fact, if we don't get serious about it, it could make it a lot worse. But it's not just me. We all have defining experiences, things that helped make us who we are, and a lot of your stories are probably also at risk from climate change. Those stories need to be told before they become history. And that is my ask for you today. On top of the stuff you're already doing, like making smarter choices on energy and travel and food, I want you as specialists to talk about your experience. As engineers, scientists, and technicians, we know the risks firsthand. We see them every day on project after project, and we need to talk about that. In a digital world, A personal story about what we risk losing can make all the difference. Commit to a conversation with someone who needs to hear it, a family member, an acquaintance, a decision maker, and make that connection to share your experience and help them see why this matters to you. Because if enough people understand now, the defining experiences we had can still be shared by future generations as well.
I absolutely love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Chris, do you want to add anything to that? How does that feel when you share that type of story with the classroom?
Yeah. I don't know what you say. Yeah.
I love the richness of it. I love that you talk about yourself in a really human forward and authentic way while still sharing that STEM aspect of things.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I just talking to the kids and sort of had the graphs, and at the last minute when I was kind of thinking of, I was presenting, I was like, I'll go see if I can find some old pictures. And I found all the old pictures of kind of growing up on the Rideau Canal, and I was like, you know what, this actually did, it kind of impacted who I am. And I was like, I guess that kind of that, and thinking back to, I guess, the discussions we had the first couple of times I did Engineer Residence, like talking to you guys and hearing that those personal connections, personal stories makes the connection. I just started adding more and more of the old pictures and then adding more and more of that old story, and it kind of changed what I was talking about entirely. And it's like stuff I can't usually do with my colleagues. So it was really interesting to see, to see how that worked out talking to kids.
Thank you so much. Gosh, I just love that video. I appreciate how you layered in that human forward focus and those personal stories. It's just so impactful. Becky, do you want to add anything before I move on?
I just want to also thank you, Chris, and I'm always watching for your videos on LinkedIn. So I encourage everybody else to do the same. Chris produces some amazing content that you can use in the classroom, like he puts it up there on YouTube. And I just really appreciate it, Chris. And we did not ask Chris to make that video, like, and give you guys the prompt of, telling your own stories. It kind of worked out just really well that way. But I encourage you all to take him up on that challenge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, moving forward. Oh, shoot, I just clicked on YouTube instead of back to my presentation. Bear with me here, everybody. Technical challenges.
Sarah, try advancing the slide before you, yeah, because I have that problem too.
Technology. Okay, now I'm going to move forward from the telling your engineering story and into the curriculum links. And really, I just wanted to touch on this as a couple of ideas to get you started when it comes to connecting the activities that you're doing with the curriculum. I definitely really encourage teachers and engineers to talk to one another, work directly together as you're planning your activities in the classroom to build connections to that curriculum and set expectations early. And engineers, when you're thinking about the activities that you want to do, talk to the teacher in advance, send them the details of the activity you're thinking of, and ask them to consider how to connect that to the curriculum. And in some cases, there might even be opportunities for the students to do a little bit of pre-work going in. So an example of this is I live in British Columbia. I was recently talking to the grade 5 teacher in my town who's going to be doing the Future Cities project this year. And she and I together on the phone went on the BC curriculum, and I've only included links here for Ontario and BC, but depending on what province you're in, I really encourage you just Google your province and curriculum. Thank you, Becky. I see you've put that in the chat there. We have a document with all of those links. I've gone through both of these two websites, Ontario and British Columbia, and I, as a non-educator, I actually find it really easy to navigate it. You can go in there, you can click on the grade you're going to be going into, you can click on science or science and technology, depending on what province you're in, and find out what it is that the kids are going to be learning this year, and really use that to kind of start to plan out what your activities might be. So going back to my story about the grade 5 teacher in my town, if you're not aware, this year's Future Cities project is going to be on electrifying your future. So very focused on electricity. And when Jeanette, the teacher, went into the curriculum, she said, well, the kids, we're not necessarily doing electricity this year, but we are doing gravity. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool, because here in BC, if you're not aware, we just opened a new dam, the Site C Dam, and they're filling it right now as a huge energy generation project. And I thought, oh, that's a no-brainer to me as an engineer. I can connect Site C Dam to gravity and then talk about electricity across BC. And so that felt to me like a really great curriculum connection. And then just a last note on that, when you are connecting your activity to the curriculum, you can have follow-up activities with the classroom, and that can maybe be teacher-led. Maybe they do a wrap-up after your session to talk about how that linkage makes sense for their curriculum, and how they can do more with what you've taught them. And then one last tip, AI can be a really powerful tool for this. So one of our long-term EIRs, Dave Steves, out in Eastern Toronto, he did a lot of work this year on playing around with ChatGPT, and you can put right in there a prompt that says, give me a lesson plan for grade 5 kids that connect with the Ontario science curriculum. And it works. It really does. It really can give you some great starting point ideas. And if you continue through the prompts, you can really fine tune what that lesson plan looks like. So I encourage you to play around with that. We also have lessons in our library that you're welcome to leverage that do connect back to the curriculum as well. And that actually is a really good segue into the next slide. All of our lessons that we've curated can be found on EIR.ca under resources. You'll see that the format that the lessons are in, if you've been in there before, it's changed very slightly, but they're all there. It's really visual. You can go in and see thumbnails of each lesson and click into them to find out more. And you'll find in those lessons all the material lists and resources and documents, and even in some cases presentations that go with each of those lessons. And if you're looking for ideas, I really encourage you to use that as a place to start. Google is also your friend too. There's so much great stuff out there. So many STEM outreach organizations have their activities online, and so there's lots available there. And you can always ask us if you need an idea. Becky has done this for many, many years, and I know she has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to different activities that are available to you. So lots of different ways you can find those fun activities. Again, if you have an activity in mind that we haven't talked about or that isn't in our library, that's fine too. We are not prescriptive, but we're supportive. So if you want to do something that you're not seeing here, that is absolutely fine. Okay, moving ahead. So we're going to do a breakout room now, and we want you just to talk a little bit in your breakout room about why do you want to be an EIR if you're an engineer, and what are your goals and expectations? And teachers, why do you want an EIR in your class, and what are your goals and expectations? And maybe just talk a little bit about kind of your vision for this school year and what you hope to get out of the program. It's 1:36 now in Ontario, so we'll do this until about 1:40. We'll give you like 4 or 5 minutes just to have a quick chat. Rebecca's going to split us all into groups, and you should see a prompt come on your screen to go join your breakout room. And I hope we can send about 4 into each one. Becky,
Yep, I'm going to get that set up now. And like Sarah said, I just encourage you to, like, this is your time to really start thinking about how you want to set up your year. And that really can have a significant impact on how things go when you invest a little bit of time up front like this. So I'm going to assign them automatically. So and then I'll keep an eye and see if it looks like you don't have anyone else who's active, then hop back to the main room, or we'll try and keep an eye and make sure everybody's got at least a couple people in their room that can chat with each other. So here we go. I'm going to open all the rooms.
Thank you.
We're good.
Yvonne was just telling us a great her motivation, and we got cut off. Yeah, we could have used another. No, we could have been chatting for like 10 minutes more easily.
Vaughn, is it something you want to share with all of us? If I put you on the spot, does anybody have something that they got out of that they want to share with the group?
I think it was interesting. I met someone from Edmonton. We were talking kind of, and he's like, "Where are you from?" And that, so it's different personalities from across Canada.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. All right. We're going to do a couple more breakout rooms as we move through, maybe not quite as long as that one, but you'll get another chance to chat with folks. So I'm just going to skip right ahead. Okay, now that we've gone through the goals and expectations, I really want to spend some time on building that solid teacher-engineer relationship. This is a bit of a new topic for our kickoff, so I'm excited to get into this a little bit. For those of you who aren't aware, generally speaking, we get just over 40% of both our teachers and our engineers coming back year over year. We have some engineers who have been doing this work with us for 20 years, if you can believe it. And a lot of people coming back just from the last couple of years. And we just really love the new participants and the fresh perspectives. I know for me, especially, I just love seeing the younger engineers getting more involved. And I'm even learning about how our workplaces are changing and how people, speak differently and work differently now than ever before. And so I think that's really valuable. But I also really want people to feel like they want to come back. I would love to see our numbers get a little higher and get more than that 40% or so coming back year over year. And I think the crux of this is that I really want you all to have such a wonderful experience that you think, how could I not do this again, So I want the teachers, the volunteers, and the students to have such a great time that they want to come back. And in this green box here, I just thought about what are some of the benefits of people coming back and what are the things that I think we can really all get from a return into the program year over year. Number one is spreading the word, like getting the word out there across Canada, telling your friends, telling your colleagues, hey, I did this really cool thing, or, for students to say, hey, when I was a kid, I had this really cool opportunity, and spreading the word. And I think that that's part of all of us getting out there and flying the flag of engineering and saying like, this is a cool profession, and it gives us something to talk about. I think as we come back, we can do more and better activities. I think about someone like an engineer who does an activity with a class that's really successful, and they think, hey, next year maybe I could do that with 2 classes or 3 classes, and it gets bigger and bigger. And I think that's an amazing opportunity. Obviously, we can reach more students and we can improve year over year with people coming back. And engineers and teachers learn from one another. I think we talk a lot about what the classrooms and what the teachers get from having an engineer there, and it's all the stuff that we talk about around like learning the engineering design process and layering rich engineering content into regular curriculum. But gosh, there's a huge opportunity for the engineers to learn from the teachers too. A big example that stands out to me is when I talk to our engineers about those values and being human focused. So many people say to me, ooh, like, that makes me uncomfortable, or I've never really thought like that before. And I just really hope that they get that human focused impact in their lives, and then take that back to work with them and think about what they did with the children and what they learned from the teacher, and taking that back into their profession. I think it makes us all better people and leads to, more student impact across Canada. And so I think having that good, solid teacher-engineer relationship leads to all of those wonderful things.
Can I add something, Sarah?
Yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to just remind everybody like what Chris just told us after watching his video, and what you said, Chris, really struck me. Like, you didn't feel like you could have that kind of a story or share that kind of a story with your peers. And so being able to share that story with kids, like that connects to something in you that you want to get out. And then just to expand on what you were saying, Sarah, about, when we're so grateful to have all of our volunteers, whether you're veterans or new. And when we think about how we can make sure everyone has an amazing experience and look to our veterans and what we can learn from them, they're usually the ones that have really, really strong, solid relationships with their teachers, that keeps them coming back. So that's why I wanted to spend a little bit of you know, some of this valuable Saturday afternoon or morning time, depending where you are, learning from what, you know, what we're getting from our community.
Excellent. Thanks, Becky. That's an awesome ad. So when we talked about how to share this with you, Becky and I thought, hey, you know, let's use the engineering design process, because I think that reminds you to consider not only what you're going into your experience with, but what comes out of it and how you learn from that. And so starting at the top right there with imagine, think about having a conversation with one another. So engineers, talk to the teacher, consider your partnership and how you'll come together as people. How are you going to work together? Just like we just did in the breakout room, share your goals for EIR. What's your vision for classroom visits? Like, what would be ideal for you? And I think having that conversation starts to help you sort of frame up how your plan is going to come together. And then you can get into those more specific nitty-gritty things, like how often will you visit, and how many will be virtual, and how many will be in person, and how long will they be, and what dates are we going to do them on, and all of that detailed stuff kind of leading into the plan part of it. And I'm going to skip forward. And then more specifically around what activities you're going to do, engineers, share with the teachers, what are your strengths and interests? How do you hope to engineer an impactful experience for the kids? Teachers, share with the engineer what your students are curious about, and what your curriculum goals are for the year, so that you can get into that more detailed planning of what activities you're going to do. Discuss what role you'll each play in the classroom. A lot of engineers ask me, like, what if the kids start acting up? What do I do? And I think teachers play a big role in understanding the children and understanding how they're going to react to the engineer, and kind of preparing them for it, and thinking about, you know, how to support the engineer while they're there trying to do their activity. Think about how you'll communicate ongoing. Will it be by email? Will it be by text? Will you have regular meetings? Whatever works best for you is fine with us. And so definitely be talking about that with one another, and think about how you'll handle schedule changes that come up. Engineers can have very busy jobs. Maybe something will come up at work and they'll have to move a session with the classroom. Talk about that up front. And you can start to see, like, as I talk through the imagining and the planning, building that solid upfront expectation and building that relationship upfront can really lead to success as you actually get into delivering those activities with the kids, and making sure that you're really well prepared for it going in. A little bit of pre-work goes a really long way. And then when you think about the actual activities you're doing in the classroom, like as you're creating and testing your activities, really be specific about planning those classroom activities. Even if it's something like, you know, the first visit, hey, engineer, I'm going to come in, I'm going to just talk about myself, I'm going to do a little presentation and do an open dialogue Q&A. That session in itself is very fluid and casual, but you're being very specific upfront about what it's going to be and what it's going to look like. And you've talked about it upfront, and you're both aligned that that's what's going to happen in the classroom. Along the way, share constructive feedback with one another. Teachers, if you feel like it's not working, tell the engineer what it is that's not working, and talk to each other about how to make things work better. And don't forget to have fun along the way. I had to add that in. And then when you think about
Wait, Sarah, can I just, before you go on, can I just say, like, teachers, I don't know if we have teachers on the call, but you're so good at giving feedback. Like, I've seen this is what you do all the time with report cards and whatnot, but like, and the engineers really, we really appreciate it. I've seen some amazing feedback coming from teachers, so that's amazing.
I'm gonna say too, I talk to so many engineers, they all want it. We want it. We want to know. We want it to be successful. We don't want to go in and find out that, hey, we never knew, but it was actually a really bad session. And oh, you didn't tell us. Like, we want it to be successful. So yeah, please share that feedback. And then, yeah, going into that cycle of the engineering design process, like, really think about, how are the kids responding to you? How are the kids responding to the visits and the activities that you're doing? I mentioned earlier that the teachers might consider doing like a day after debrief, or continue, if it's a curriculum-based activity, really continuing that learning, and like bring it back around, and think about how how that's working and if more needs to be done or if changes need to be made, and make those changes as necessary. And then just like the engineering design process, go back around the circle, learn from that, make changes, be specific, plan your next activity, and just talk to each other. Good communication goes a really long way.
I wanted to add to the plan a day after debrief. So I was actually chatting with one of our veteran EIRs earlier this week, and that practice came from her using the engineering design process over the months and years that she was with the program. And she was telling me how they would do an activity, and the end of the activity is usually a real high where you're testing something out, or they're presenting this amazing design they've just created. And then you try and do a debrief and you try and fit it into the 60 or 90 minutes that you're there. And it can be a little bit of a, for the kids anyway, they're like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to remember that this is actual stuff I'm learning. And and so it can be a bit of a downer to end on. And so as part of her, engineering design process, her and the teacher worked out this idea of, well, what if we bump the debrief to the day after? So then at least they get to kind of end on this high note, and then the kids sort of maybe absorb it overnight a little, and then the teacher does the debrief with them afterwards. So I thought that was just a really great example of how she was putting into practice the engineering design process.
That's an awesome tip. I love that. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So I love that you segued really well into this, Becky, because I want to talk in our next breakout rooms about what is your role in setting up EIR for success. Teachers, maybe it's that wrap up, but I think it's so much more than that too. So let's split into breakout rooms again and talk about what are you going to do this year to ensure success of the program. We'll make this one a little bit shorter, Becky.
Here when we're ready about setting up for the process.
Yeah,
Ooh, okay, well, wait a minute,
Oh, okay.
we still have a few that are coming. So
Okay, hold that thought.
I think they're almost all back, or maybe people dropped off, because we should have more than 16 here. Let's just go for it then. Okay. I'm recording again.
So watch the waiting room just in case people got dropped.
Yeah.
Okay. Yana, go ahead. We'd love to hear your story.
Oh, you're muted.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, it's Yana. So I just was sharing with my group. It seems like there's a lot of engineers in the house, which is amazing. And as a teacher, I thought I'd share that in Ontario's context, at least, but maybe other provinces as well, legislation and procedures for Ministry of Education really demanded of teachers to do a lot more work in advance of guests coming into the classroom. And there's like a whole process in addition to a vulnerable sector check, which I know you guys help them with, the engineers with, but there's like a whole form to fill out that's ministry mandated, where we need to have principal approval, and parents a letter has to be sent home to parents about the name of it and like all of that. So I would encourage that to get started early, before, like, well in advance of the first planned visit, maybe as much as like a month or two in advance, because it seems laborious of a process, and I would hate that to get in the way and disappoint kids when they're excited.
I really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much.
It's something that's really good insight too. And I would stress even more about this kind of planning ahead now, because that can, I'm imagining, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, Yana, but like if you can put into the letter that this is a regular guest that will be coming in over the course of the year, and these are the kinds of things that they will be talking about, that takes some of the burden off, hopefully, that you're not having to do it every single time. And so that's a really good insight. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. That can be like specified up front, so that just if you've planned ahead, and that the parents are given upfront information, so the principal can approve it, and even in general, that this will be an ongoing connection and visitor to the classroom.
And I mean, I would look at it too as like an opportunity to connect with the parents. We don't always get to connect with them. And so this is an opportunity to help the parents understand and what's going on with engineering and maybe have some conversations at home about it.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we could have a whole entire session just on engaging parents. Becky and I were at the CC West conference earlier this year, and there was a stat thrown out there. And gosh, I wish I could find the source of this stat, but something like 95% of girls that choose engineering in post-secondary have a family member who's an engineer. And so it seems like it's a bit of a barrier that unless the parents know about engineering or are engineers themselves, girls are less likely to go into the profession. And so as much as we can share with the parents what we're doing, I think it's all positive. It's all good, obviously for boys and for girls, but especially for the girls. If we can get the parents on board, I think that really helps drive that idea that engineering is a potential for those kids. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Does anyone else want to share anything from the breakout room about what is your role in setting up the program for success? Okay. I'm going to keep moving forward. We are on track for time. I hope that we'll have about 20 minutes to half an hour at the end for some interactive conversations. So if you do have to drop off, we're almost finished our content. So we're going to move right into engineering a STEM experience in the classroom. So how to ensure that those activities are really successful with the kids in the classroom. We get this question all the time. How am I going to deliver this activity? And how should I think about it as I'm planning my activity in the classroom? There's a lot of words on this slide, but I just really want to emphasize a couple of things. So as you're thinking about the activity that you're going to bring, and teachers, as you're thinking about what types of activities you want the engineers to bring into the classroom, we've talked a lot about how to connect it to the curriculum and that main objective of introducing children to real life engineers. As you're thinking about that, consider your audience, consider the messaging that you're trying to convey, and think about the kids who maybe aren't the math and science superstars. Think about the kids who have all these other characteristics that engineers have, and the kids who may not go into engineering but will benefit from knowing what engineers do. Think about all the messaging that is stereotypical of engineers and how you might want to change that and show what engineers actually do, and really consider the impact of the project and activity that you're bringing in. So here's an example. If you're going to be doing like a bridge building activity, building it and thinking about just the engineering design aspect of it only appeals to one type of youth potentially. And so really think about how that bridge might impact the community that the kids are in, and think about their general awareness of all of engineering, and consider all of the different professions that those kids might go into, where a bridge might really impact their work and how they might think about the world. I talked to somebody the other day and I asked them, why did you become an engineer? What's your engineering story? And she said, well, my dad taught me how to see the world in a different way. And like, that's all she said. And I've been thinking about it for like 4 days now, ever since she said that to me. And I think this is the impact that I want to have. I want to do activities like bridge building, but help kids see the world in a different way. A lot of kids would just drive over a bridge and never think about who made it or why it's there, where it came from. And so it's a good opportunity for us to share these really broad messages. Current messages for youth around engineering are, you have to be good at math and science, or you are good, and so you should go into engineering. You have to be super smart. Engineers build stuff. Engineers drive trains. We all know that these aren't the real messages about what an engineer is. And so we have all these other ideas for you on how else we could message engineering. And so when you're thinking about your activities, think about how these messages come across. And I just bolded a couple that really stood out for me. So that idea that engineering is all around you, that you see the world in a different way. Engineering needs diversity. We need diversity in culture, in thought, in background, in gender, all these things, so that we can solve all the world's problems and not just, drive trains and build bridges. And engineers work in many disciplines, industries, and areas. So I've told a lot of you this before, but I'm a process engineer, and I've even worked on business process. And so I go way beyond just, building machines in factories. And then we're going to do another really quick breakout room. These are really close together, sorry, but I want to talk a little bit with everybody about what are some of the engineering messages we just had on the screen that resonate with you. So I'm going to put those back up there for a minute. Do any of these resonate with you and why? Maybe instead, do you want to do instead of a breakout room, just have a conversation here?
Oh yeah, let's do that. We only have like 2 people now, so I think we could probably do that.
Were you going to say something, Becky?
I was gonna say I'm gonna get ready to do the breakout rooms, but I like your idea now.
Let's sit right here, and that way we have them on the
Yeah.
screen too. So I told you I bolded a couple that stand out to me. Does anybody see one on there that really stands out to them that they really think is important to share in the classroom? Yana, by all means, jump right in.
I think that the idea that engineering needs diversity and that there's a place for you in engineering is really important for us to get across the students, even in the face of all the other like messages they get that you have to be a genius to get into engineering and you have to be a genius to survive engineering. They still need to hear that there is a place for them. There's support, there's help out there for them. And it's a hard message to convince them of. And the kids, when they get into engineering, they still need to hear it. They need to continue to hear that message while even in university, because faculties don't necessarily send that message out very loudly.
It's a really good point, Yana, and like we need to really think about how we are talking authentically about it, because like let's be honest, we are living in a world where you do need a high average to get into engineering. Like it's not untrue, like you do need a high average. But that said, there's some kids that math and science just comes easy to them. And I know this was for me, like in high school, I was like, this is so easy. And then I went to university and I was like, oh, what just happened? Like I really struggled. And I've talked to other people who went along an engineering path and they struggled in high school. They had to work really hard to get the average that they needed to get into an engineering program. And they got to university and they were like, I'm good. I know I already know how to work hard. So there's lots of, we have to talk to these kids in these different ways. And one of my favorite things to do is go in and say, like, I suck at mental math. I'm terrible at mental math. And yet I still was successful in getting through an engineering pathway. There's someone else I see has their hand up.
Yeah, I think it's on same idea, but I guess for the students, kind of want to stress there's a difference between an engineer and engineering, because engineering requires almost an entire village. You don't need to necessarily be good at math, science to be involved in engineering. But for example, I work in the AEC, so construction, but so I'm working with a lot of electricians who are not saying they're not good at math or science, but it's a lot more hands-on skills. Why they may not be engineers, but they're still involved in the engineering process, and there's a lot of pathways to enter into engineering field, not necessarily for engineers, but at least many pathways for them to enter into it.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And some of the best engineers I know have expanded their knowledge to include things like welding and electrician type work, because then they can relate better to the people in their profession too. And so I agree with you, and I think it goes both ways. Akash, do you want to add something?
Yes, I love the sentence that says focus on understanding the world, because that's exactly how it all started for me. I started to question everything. How does this work? How did they make this? Like, for example, even you said, like, who built this bridge? How did they even make it? Like, who put this structure in the middle of the ocean, right? So talking about that type of stuff will definitely like spike that interest in the kids. And I'm pretty sure I can like drive some kind of a parallel between the kids and where I am right now and how I got here. It's interesting. And I really like that sentence.
Love that. Thank you.
It's a really good point too. And I want to just like almost add on to what you're saying. And like, there are already those kids, and for the teachers that are here today, the kids like me who are just strong in math and science, and they're most likely going to go down a pathway into engineering or some sort of STEM career. And that's amazing. But it's the ones that haven't met an engineer or maybe haven't thought to ask those questions, like you said, Akash. And so those are the that's kind of our target audience, right? Like let's maybe turn some light bulbs on for them, to get them thinking about things a bit differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I remember in my high school, I really struggled with math. I was like, how am I going to become an engineer? I'm really struggling with math right now. But once I got into engineering, when I understood the core of it, when I understood what I'm doing, the concept behind it, it was I was coasting with the math, and I'm pretty sure every kid that's not good at math or not good at science, they can pick it up once they figure out the field and they understand what engineering is all about.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah. Liam, did you want to add something else, or is your hand just still up from before?
I forgot to lower my hand.
Okay. Yeah, I love that sentence. Focus on understanding the world. I think about our wonderful engineers at Canada Post. Like we were just talking to Daisy and the engineers that work at City of Toronto. I come from food manufacturing, and every time I used to tell somebody that I work at Campbell Soup, they'd be like, "What the heck does an engineer do at Campbell Soup?" Well, I worked in the factory, and of course there's engineers at Campbell Soup. That made sense to me, but other people don't necessarily see that, and so I love being able to tell kids that hey, you can do all these really cool jobs that you didn't even know existed before. Okay, let's move forward. I'm actually going to pass it off now to Don Ball. Don is going to speak to us about an activity that he's been doing with youth called Climate Fresque. And it really is a nice fit in this part of our presentation because it's an example of the type of activity you might want to do with kids. And it really highlights that importance of connecting it with what they're learning, thinking about your audience and how you want to connect with them. And then also at the back end, thinking about that impact of what that does for the kids. And so we really appreciate Don Ball coming today and sharing this activity with us. He's going to share his screen. So sorry, I'm not the best at technology, but I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen.
You're good, Sarah. I think Don.
So now I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I want to share with you Climate Fresque, which I've just discovered in the last 6 months or so.
Don, can you introduce yourself first?
So I'm an EIR in Ottawa, retired engineer, and I've been in this program since 2011, and I really love this program. And so why is this important? Well, the threat of climate change is existential, as we know, and it's hard to change what you don't understand. So the first step is to talk about it. And let's think about this from a teacher point of view. So you people are either helping teachers or you are teachers. And we know that it's a challenge to deal with complex topics, making them accessible and engaging. And many people, adults and students, feel overwhelmed by this subject. And what we'd really like to do is help them to understand the science and feel empowered to take action. Where did Fresque come from? It was invented by a professor in France for his students, and it's based on a set of 42 cards derived from the reports and graphs of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC. So in the first half of the workshop, we position all these cards in relationships of cause and consequence. And this happened in France. So he was thinking, well, we make a fresco. And a fresco is a picture painted on a wall. In French, fresco is Fresque. So I think it's a bit unfortunate, but they thought FRESK would work well in all languages. In English, it really means nothing, but that's where the term came from. They started a not-for-profit organization, and they started giving these workshops in 2018. And incredibly, these workshops have now been given to 1.8 million people, participants worldwide in 162 countries in more than 45 languages by more than 83,000 volunteer facilitators. It's quite an organization. So how are they doing in Canada? Well, in Montreal and Quebec City, it's pretty well developed in French. And they're giving lots of public workshops, about one every 2 weeks. And about 10,000 people have taken these workshops in the Montreal area. Other cities in Canada are developing, but at a much lower scale. And a few of us have the goal of changing that. We want to follow the lead of Montreal. So here's the fresco that I mentioned, and this is a public workshop. In fact, that's me in the picture on the right, and this was the first workshop I attended. We did this at St. Gregory's School, where I volunteer, to 2 classes, and it was great. The junior version of the workshop is a reduced version, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So the Climate Fresque workshop is fun, collaborative, visual, creative, simple, and scientific. So the data used is based on the IPCC reports, and it's designed for novices and experts. The IPCC was created by the United Nations in 1988, and they've made a series of assessment reports. The latest was AR6, was produced in 2021-22 with the synthesis report, which is like a summary in 23. So how does the workshop work? Well, we have a set of tables in the room, and at each table we have 4 to 7 participants. There's ideally 1 facilitator for each table, but if necessary, a facilitator can handle 2 or even 3 tables. And the first half of the workshop roughly is what we call the card game. So it's starting with 42 cards in the adult version, 21 cards in the junior version. And the total workshop takes 3 hours for the adult version, 2 hours for the junior version. The junior version is designed for participants from 10 to 15 years old. So in grades, that's roughly grade 5 to grade 10. But in grade 10, it's a judgment call whether to use the junior version or the adult version. And we want the participants to leave feeling these 4 things. We want them to leave feeling, I learned something, we did this, I had a good time, and I'm doing something about it. So why should you take Climate Fresque into your classroom this year? Well, it's a powerful educational tool, and it's aligned with STEM education goals. And it encourages students to do the following. engage in real world issues, apply critical thinking skills, work collaboratively with a team, and learn about one of the most pressing challenges of our time. And this is an opportunity to expand the impact of the Engineer in Residence program. So by doing this, you're not just teaching engineering principles, you're showing students how those principles can be applied to solve global challenges. It's a way to inspire them to think like engineers and problem solvers in a world that desperately needs their skills and creativity. So, what could you do about this? Well, you can visit the Climate Fresk website, which is climatefresk.org/world, and you might find a workshop that fits your schedule in your area. So there are some in-person public workshops around, or there are also online workshops where the facilitator might be in California and the participants might be in Europe or anywhere in North America. This will give you firsthand experience with the program and help you to decide how it might fit into your teaching. We have the Engineers of Tomorrow Climate Action Working Group working to expand the program. And we're particularly working in these few places. We want to develop a nucleus of facilitators so that we can grow the program in Kingston, Ottawa, GTA West, or the area around North Bay. And we're interested in working with you to build on our existing programming in these regions. And then, of course, from there, we springboard to Whistler, BC, or Fort McMurray, wherever. So if you're interested, please contact either my friend Don Sproul or myself, Don Ball, or Megan, who is on this call, and she is the regional chair of GTA West. So I hope that's interesting. Any comments or questions?
Just thank you so much for sharing, Don. I think Climate Fresk is such a wonderful example of the type of activity that a lot of people would really love to bring into the classroom. And I think it really resonates well with the kids. So as EIRs, I encourage you to think about Climate Fresk as an example of an activity you might want to do, or anything else. Again, we're not at all prescriptive about what activities you do, but there would be a lot of support if you chose to do something like Climate Fresk or specifically Climate Fresk in the classroom. And Don, we really appreciate your support in bringing that into EOT.
I just wanted to add too that for those of you who don't know Don yet, or are just meeting him today, he's many years of experience in the classroom, and I really respect when Don says something's a good program. I know it's a good program, so I just will leave that there and let you all think about if it makes sense for you.
Excellent. Okay. Can you see my screen again now?
Well, I was just going to ask Dawn if you can order like these cards, or is there resources available to us for doing this in the classrooms?
Great question. So the first step is to take the workshop yourself. And as I mentioned, either in person or online. The second step, if you decide to continue and pursue this, is to take the facilitator workshop, which takes 3 hours. And again, it can be taken in person or online. Once you're a facilitator, then you have access at the Climate Fresk website, you have access to resources. So you can order the cards. You need to have them printed locally, but you can you can get a PDF version. And there is more and more training available for facilitators, huge amount of resources. And Don Sproul, myself, and Megan would be happy to help you answer questions, brainstorm, whatever. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'll start looking at that, because I know I'm always wondering how to approach bringing climate change to the classroom, and whether you're going to terrify your students or have an encouraging message, I think is I guess the how to do that. So
that is very, very important. When we did it at St. Gregory School in June, it was the first time the junior fresque workshop had been given in the Ottawa area. And the teacher was on board. She was very, very keen, but she took a public workshop herself for the adult version. And she found that halfway through the workshop, it was terribly negative, because you learn about the science and impacts of climate change, and the impacts are pretty terrible, some of them. And she was concerned that in the junior version, the kids would end up really, really depressed. And so we actually had 5 facilitators in her class of 27 students, and we did it morning and afternoon. So we talked about that before the workshop, because we did not want the kids to leave the workshop feeling depressed. We wanted them to leave the workshop feeling hopeful. So we played the card game initially, and the agenda for the junior workshop is the same as for the adult one, just shorter. And so halfway through, the kids have understood the science and impacts. But then we spent some time talking about emotions. How does this make you feel? And we wanted them, as I say, we wanted them to feel hopeful. We wanted them to feel, let's translate any anxiety into action and momentum. Well, at the table where I was in the morning, when I posed that question, how does this make you feel? Some of the kids said, it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel angry. And then one girl said, it makes me feel like I want to act. And I thought, yes, we succeeded.
That's amazing. So impactful for them. Yeah, super cool. Okay. Yeah, if you have any other questions, by all means, reach out to Don, or Megan at GTA West, and we'll be sending out this slide deck to everyone, so you'll have access to that information too after the fact. Okay, thanks, Don.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course, yeah, we're happy to give you the chance to share. That's amazing. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through some resource recommendations for you just to kind of wrap things up. I hope to do that just really quickly over a few minutes here, and then please, by all means, drop off, or you can stay on if you have questions, and Becky and I will hang out for a little while to answer any questions you have. So just really quick, actually, I'll just go back to this one. A couple of tips for success. We talked about this in one of our summer training sessions, and I just wanted to go through these again really quickly. So again, that human-focused approach to your work with the classroom is really impactful. So really be relatable with the students and the teachers, and come together as human people, and be empathetic to the kids. promoting a growth mindset. So that idea that we all have that potential to learn, and that the kids are curious and they have a desire to learn, and really give them a chance to be curious and ask questions, and promote that learning feeling around understanding engineering better. Talk about the societal and the social importance of your work. So going back to that bridge example, helping kids connect it to their daily lives. Maintaining high standards. This one on the surface doesn't seem like something that fits in well here, but I really want to emphasize it. I think there are some times when we're doing activities with classes and they might start to feel really challenged and not sure what to do. And our instinct as humans is to say to them, oh, don't worry about it. Let's skip past the hard part. But I think maintaining high standards and holding the kids to high standards and helping them work through those really tough challenges can be really important and impactful to them. And then valuing diversity. I mean, this is why we're here. This is why we're doing this, is to show kids that engineers are so much more than they may have ever thought that we were, and valuing that diversity and encouraging it in the engineering profession and in the activities in the classroom.
Sarah, I'll just add before you get into the next slide, though, that those tips, those come from science. So there's some incredible organizations. There's one you might want to check out called Engendering Success in STEM that are doing these fantastic studies. And so we're taking their research and we're giving you, we're taking that knowledge and we're putting it in your hands so that you can use the science to create these experiences in the classroom. So, it's not just from, taking things we know has worked over the years. There's actual science behind those tips for success.
Yeah, thanks for that. Excellent. Again, I'm going to be sending out this deck to everybody, so we don't have to go through all of these in detail, but a couple of other resources that we really love that I want to remind you about. We did do training for our engineers in July, and all of those sessions were recorded and they're on our YouTube channel and on EIR.ca. We'll make sure you have access to that with links. There are monthly checklists that you'll be receiving with the newsletters that Becky sends out. The first checklist is on your Welcome to EIR email. So look for that one in there. It has some really good points on how to get started. We have a wonderful Discord channel with lots of our engineers and some teachers dialoguing all the time about the program. So if you haven't joined us on Discord and want to know how to join us, let me know. Send me an email. I'll get you invited onto there and we can get you started. There is a presentation template that we're happy to provide. There's actually also a parent letter that we can help you if the teachers are looking for that, especially when it comes to what Yana was talking about with getting permission and sharing what we're doing with teachers. We can help you with that. We do have some financial resources. So if you want to do Climate Fresk, if you want to get microbits or spend a little bit of money in your classroom, let us know. I think it's about $300 that you have access to, and we can reimburse you for that as well as your PVSC. Any questions, please just email us anytime. Becky and I are always happy to help. And then I added this afterwards. It probably should be above the reaching out to us for help. Other online resources that we love. Becky and I have been talking a lot lately about this podcast called Math Therapy Podcast. So I encourage you to check that out. And again, Google's your friend. Go out there and see what's online. There's so many amazing resources out there. And I added another link at the bottom there to the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. It's a great place to start if you're looking for a next step up from the curriculum around what type of engineering messaging we should be sharing with children. In terms of our calendar, so here we are in September. Over the next probably 8 weeks or so, that's when you might be thinking about doing your first visit. If your police check is done, if you haven't done that police check, you should go ahead and get started with that right away. If you need help, let me know. And then go ahead and do those first visits over the next 8 weeks or so. We'll be checking in with you over the course of the next few months, and we'll be kicking off Future Cities in December. So you'll be hearing from us about that, and we'll check in with you on what's going on. But again, let us know if something doesn't seem to be working. Around April or May, you'll hear from us again about how things are going for this year and whether you want to come back for next year. And I hope more than 40% of you want to come back next year. And then, yeah, just a couple of last points. So if you're feeling stuck, go back to that Welcome to EIR email. There's lots of good information there. Go over that summer training, ask your questions on Discord. We mentioned the Library of Lessons, check that out. And things you can do right now, go ahead and book that first meeting, get your police check, and please, please, please take lots of photos. Becky and I don't get to go in the classroom with you and we want to see what's going on. So take lots of photos. If you're not sure if you're allowed to share the photos, ask the teacher. They know what the rules are around sharing pictures of the kids. We get a lot of good pictures of the backs of kids' heads. We like those too. So please go ahead and do that and let us know how it's going that way. And then just lastly, let's do another Slido. How are people feeling now about the program after this session? So go ahead, I'll throw the link there in the chat, or you can use this QR code and let me know how you're feeling. I hope that we have people higher up on the scale. And if you're still feeling kind of low on the scale and you have a lot of questions, let me know. Reach out, send an email to Becky or to me, and we're happy to help. Oh, good. Look at that. We've already got a couple people up there. We have 6 votes and people are feeling good to great.
Sarah, do you mind advancing to the next slide while people are letting us know how they're feeling? Because I just wanted to make sure we take time today to thank all of our amazing supporters. As you all know, we offer this program free of charge to the schools. We really value accessibility when it comes to getting this messaging out there, and we couldn't do that without our amazing partners and sponsors and donors. So high five, like big round of applause for all of them. And of course, all of you for, for your engineers for donating your time, and EIRs, and I don't know why my phone is making noise, sorry. And teachers for opening your doors to let us into the classrooms as well. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you all so much for your time on this Saturday morning / afternoon. And yeah, let us know if you need anything, and have an awesome time this year. Good luck with everything.
Yeah, you got this. You got this.
You got this. We believe in you.
Yay.
So we have about 15 minutes left of our 2-hour time slot. Please, by all means, if you want to go, please head out, enjoy your Saturday. Thank you again for letting us into your homes today. And if you want to stay back and ask a question, if you're maybe not on the top end of that scale in the survey, please stay on if you want to talk to us a little more. But otherwise, thank you all and have a great weekend.
Yeah, and thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Becky.
Together. And Dawn, thank you, Dawn, and everybody that shared today.